this December 7th through 9th. Check out the EdUp Experience podcast live and in person in Doha, Qatar for the World Innovation Summit on Education. We will be documenting the ideas and innovations from today's most influential global education leaders. Check them out at wise-qatar.org and follow the EdUp Experience podcast for more information. Yay! Guys, this is Joe just popping in to ask if you've signed up for your free marketing consultation with MDT Marketing yet. If you haven't, head to mdtmarketing.com/edup, submit your information, get your free consultation today. Don't do it alone. Find the right partner. Welcome back, everybody. This is the EdUp Experience podcast where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Solucio here with you again and again and again. I'm going to give myself a drum roll. Yes, it's me. Here I am. There's nobody else to hit those sound effects buttons for me, so I have to take advantage of it when I can. I do, as always, want to remind you, if you support the EdUp Experience podcast, please head to www.edupexperience.com. Go to the review section. It's super easy. We've really made it easy for you to tell us what you think of this podcast. You obviously want to rate us with 5 stars. You obviously want to tell us how great we are. Please do that when you get 5 minutes. That's all it'll take or less. Make sure you let Elvin know specifically what you think of his podcast producing skills. He doesn't get enough credit or criticism for that matter. So, write to your heart's content to Elvin. We appreciate it. Remember, we're writing a book here at the EdUp Experience. How in the world could you possibly listen to 100 episodes of amazing college and university presidents talking? In fact, maybe you have, and maybe you want to do that. But if you don't want to do that, and you want to understand common themes that are coming out of these interviews with these college and university presidents, well, to your heart's content, you're going to read about it in the EdUp Experience book that we are writing as we speak. It's going to synthesize. If you're in higher ed, you understand what synthesize means, or at least you have your doctorate degree, which a lot of our presidents do. Synthesize all these common themes and issues and struggles and challenges and successes that our college and university presidents are having. In technology, by the way. That's going to be exciting. Stay tuned for that. Join our email list and we'll keep you up to date, including asking what you think of the various titles we have going on. Elvin hates what I pick. I don't particularly like what he picks either, so we're going to have to land somewhere in the middle. So maybe you will decide what the book is going to be called. Okay, now I'm going to take a breath. Here we go. Now I'm going to bring my guest in. He's been waiting patiently. He is practicing the answers in his head, even though he doesn't know what I'm going to ask. He looks good. He's got a shirt and tie. He didn't know a tie. But he's got a button-down shirt. He's got his jacket. Man, this guy, he's looking good. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. You've been waiting for him, as have I, Dr. Brian C. Ralph, president at William Peace University. I'm going to ask the crowd. Actually, I'm going to ask the crowd to continue. Continue one more time for Brian. There we go. Brian, how are you? Welcome to the EdUp Experience.
I'm doing great. I don't think I've had an applause like that except for my second grade performance in a musical theater production of Bye Bye Birdie.
Well, I want to make sure we outdo that.
Yeah.
There it is again, ladies and gentlemen, Brian Ralph. There he is. There you go, Brian. And you deserve it. You're doing lots of great work at William Peace University. Why don't we, I always like to set the conversation. Let's talk about William Peace University. Where are you located? What do you guys do and how do you do it? You can take it whatever direction you want.
Sure. Great. Well, thanks again for the opportunity. We are located in Raleigh, North Carolina. Not sure there's a better city in the United States to be located right now. Just a lot of great things happening here.
Yep.
In Raleigh in the Research Triangle area. We are an undergraduate institution. And I would say there are really a couple things that really differentiate us. One is our approach to learning. We embrace a worldview about learning called immersive learning. And what that really is trying to move experiential, hands-on experiences into every classroom and lab and off campus as well. And so not just isolated experiences, which we do have, like a terrific internship program, but also really weaving those types of experiences into every single classroom experience. And so our faculty have been literally working over the last couple of years in particular, completely changing how we teach, our pedagogical approaches. And it's really made a huge difference in our student outcomes. We've seen a terrific improvement in retention and most importantly, student learning and engagement, which of course is what we're all about. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, being located in Raleigh, North Carolina, we are right in downtown Raleigh. We've kind of got this really beautiful bucolic campus that you might find in a countryside in a remote area, but we happen to be right at the north end of downtown Raleigh. And so we have this great best of both worlds for our students, where they get this really wonderful learning environment here on campus, but literally can walk out our front door to their internship or take in culture, events, arts, and certainly great job opportunities when they graduate. And the last thing I'll say is that our students really differentiate us a bit. We're one of the most diverse institutions in the Southeast US. We're about 45% students of color, and we have just over 25% of our students are first in their family to go to college. And so what that means is that we have the privilege of being able to welcome students from all different backgrounds and meet them where they're at, and then help them achieve their goals and their dreams. And sometimes that's really challenging them. Sometimes that's supporting them. Sometimes it's doing a little bit of both. And we're very fortunate. We have a faculty and staff here who are exceptional at what they do. And our student outcomes are reflected by that. Probably the most notable outcome, and certainly not the only outcome, but an important one, is that 96% of our last 3 graduating classes have been employed or in graduate school within 1 year of finishing here.
That's pretty incredible.
It is pretty awesome. Pandemic, we haven't gotten the data back on that. I'm certain it's probably not going to stay that high, but hopefully we'll see. But yeah,
if
certainly
anyone has to stay that high, they might be manipulating those numbers just a tad.
I think you're right. I think you're right. So yeah, it's a great place. And interesting, we were founded in 1857. We've had 5 names in our history, if I'm counting right. And we're actually started as a women's college and high school, and then eventually became co-ed in 2012. So we've only been co-ed for the last 10 years.
Thank you for that comprehensive overview. One of the things that you talked about, and one of the most, I'm going to say it's a fascinating development within higher education, is the view that liberal arts education and employment preparation are disparate concepts, that they're not related, that, you have a private liberal arts institution, they must not be teaching anything that's career relevant. If you want career relevancy, maybe you don't even need a degree. Maybe you need to go into an apprenticeship or go take a certification, technology certification. You are marrying those concepts together in a way that communicates very well. It communicates very well on your website, in what you said and how you said it, where it's this liberal arts education and the student is working towards enrollment. So you're working towards enrollment. The student's working towards employment. How do you marry those two concepts that, depending on who you're talking to, they don't match up exactly?
Yeah, I think you make an excellent point. And there certainly is room for apprenticeships and different types of experiences like that. Our economy is going to need those for sure. But what we believe is that because things are changing so quickly, one of the primary things that we as a university need to do is make sure that our students learn how to learn. When we talk to employers, and we talk to a lot of them, we have over 200 internship partners. What they tell us is, look, most of our organizations are going to put new employees through training programs. We're going to get them up to speed on our corporate culture and our practices, business and otherwise. But if they do not have the ability to learn how to learn, to collaborate and work in group projects, to conduct research and analysis, they are just not going to be successful in these organizations of the 21st century. And so what our faculty are doing is literally, even as we're redesigning our general education program right now, they actually went and talked to employers and said, all right, what are the skills and the abilities that your future employees need? And then what they're now doing is marrying, okay, how do we approach certain disciplines? Some of them are very concrete, obviously, things like biology and things like that, but others, such as like our esports and gaming administration program or interactive design, these are areas where we want to make sure that students learn how to communicate effectively, ask good questions, work in group projects. And so our approach to immersive learning, one of the ways I like to describe it is, if you take a cube, many colleges perfect the ability of students, and let's say the cube represents a body of knowledge. Most colleges have students spend the vast majority of their time looking at one side of the cube for their 4 years. What we believe is critically important is, how does a student learn to approach that cube from multiple perspectives, multiple ways? So whether it's undergraduate research, research, doing a project with a faculty member. All of those things are skills that are going to be critically important, not only learning the information, but learning how to learn and learning how to apply different skills so that when they get into the workforce, they're going to shine because they've already had experiences and opportunities that many other college graduates have not had.
You know, the part of the experiential learning piece is this the concept of an internship, and you require that at William Peace University. Do you know?
Right, we do. And it comes in different forms. So like our education program, of course, that's student teaching, but a lot of them are going to be in for-profit and not-for-profit organizations here, Raleigh in the region, although we've had some students do them internationally or back home, depending on where they're from. And one of the things that I really believe is so critical about our internship program is that it involves a learning contract with the internship site and the student. And so the student has to sit down with their supervisor. They have to walk through what the potential learning outcomes are going to be from the internship. They work with that supervisor throughout their internship. And then at the conclusion of the internship, the student has to do a presentation talking about what their internship was all about, what they learned, where they grew, maybe mistakes that they made. And then the supervisor of that intern also does a report, basically a performance review of how that intern did. And so when you think about all those things starting to work together, you now have a student who had to go into a workplace that they'd never worked before, work for a supervisor for the first time in a very professional organization, in a professional environment, and then present that information, kind of deconstruct what worked and what didn't work, and then essentially get their first performance review for our professional work experience. And we can't think of a better way for a student to really get their hands around what the future of work in their lives is going to look like. And I always joke when I talk to families at admissions events, you know, the internship oftentimes is an incredibly valuable lead for a job. 67% of our interns last 2 years ago, we haven't measured it yet for this year, had job offers from their internship site. And over 90% of those sites said that they would hire our intern if they had on the position open. But we also have some students learn a really important lesson, and that is, wow, this is definitely what I don't want to do for the rest of my life, and what a valuable learning experience that is as well.
Yeah, that and it, you know what, the beauty of an internship is that it takes away the shock and awe of moving from college into the workforce, right? You think about
that's right.
how many students go, and you know this, Brian, I can't stand my faculty member. I mean, they don't like me. I'm having trouble in class. And you always want to say to that student, and I have before, you think you're going to love every boss you have out there, you're sorely mistaken. You need to find a way to work with people in these situations. How do you got to find common ground. You have a responsibility. And there's this shock and awe that you can have from going from college to the workforce. And we have workforce community members and businesses come back and say, you aren't teaching these guys anything. They're getting to me. And yeah, I mean, they know how to, we had a president on, I can't remember his name, but he was talking about teaching accounting. And he's teaching all these accounting principles. And yeah, he's got these great students and they can do all this stuff. And then they get on the job in day one and their boss shoves them into a room with stacks and stacks and stacks of receipts and says, figure this stuff out. That's what really is going to happen. They're not going to give you a nice clean spreadsheet and talk to you about accounting. So there's this moment of shock and awe. How do students come off those internships? Are they shocked? Are they, you know, is it exactly what they expect? What's the variability look like? And how do you then take, that's the first part of the question, then how do you take somebody that's going, okay, wait a second, wow. How do you take that wow moment, good or bad, and shape that the rest of their college experience?
Yeah, and such a critical question, because if they're not growing from that experience, then we're not doing our job. So we work really hard to prepare our students for interns. So we have a career design center here that works on internships as well as advising and placement, both on campus as well as career advising. And so one of the things we work really hard is to help students understand that they're going to have to learn to get uncomfortable, because some of those moments are going to be uncomfortable. You know, for some of our students, they've had other internships, or they've worked in some, you know, in different types of organizations. For others, this is their very first professional work experience, and so we want to make sure that we position them to be successful. But in order to do that, we want to make sure that they have to work for it. And so while we provide guidance and support around internships, ultimately they're the ones that have to broker getting those across the finish line and getting those set up. And then part of that learning process is that they'll meet with the internship center a couple times during the internship, have check-ins, do problem solving, that kind of thing, to make sure they're hanging in and doing well. And of course, we'll have check-ins with supervisors as needed. And then, as I mentioned earlier, that we do an internship showcase. And so we'll have dozens of students who had internships, and we set up in a big room, and they are each equipped with, laptops and things like that. And I've personally attended this numerous times, where I can just walk to different stations, and the students get about 3 minutes, and they do a presentation on their internship, what their learning outcomes were, what they where mistakes they made, and what they kind of took away from it. And so for them to be able to analyze and then synthesize the experience, we believe is almost as important as the experience itself, because it really rewires their learning opportunities going forward and equips them to approach those environments maybe even more strongly or fundamentally differently than they approach the internship.
Just for the record, you have another educator that just said synthesize without even knowing he was doing it. Well done, sir. Well done. I want to stay on this concept of internships, and I do want to talk about your adult and professional studies stuff that you have going on there too.
Sure.
But what you said about internships, and we haven't had a really deep discussion about internships on this podcast. We've had some, and we've kind of beat around the bush a little bit. But what you just said too about finding them yourself and brokering them, it's about finding a job. I mean, how many schools, including my own, as an undergrad, you kind of got a pat on the back and a diploma in your hand, and it was like, good luck, Joe, go find a job. And I found one at a blood bank, believe it or not, trying to recruit people to come after work to give blood, which still to this day is one of the hardest jobs I ever had. And I was like, what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? So that exercise of brokering, an internship and going after it and communicating and getting some no's maybe is an important step to the job, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we try to keep the appropriate tension of helping a student take the steps necessary for them to find success, but not to the point where we're enabling them and perhaps over helping, if you will. And so you're exactly right. There is this moment where they've got to learn how to take some of these steps. And sometimes those students step into that gap boldly and with a lot of confidence. But one of the things, frankly, we do really well here is meet students where they're at and then help them develop that courageous confidence to kind of take those steps and trust themselves. And sometimes that can be a little scary for some of those students, and then other times they're able to jump right in. And the beauty of that is that we get the reward of seeing both of those students have success, no matter where their background led them up to that point.
I'm sitting over here. I'm ready to ask you a question, and my elbow hit my sound effect button. That was like totally while you were talking. This was going to happen, and I didn't want it to happen nice. while you were talking. So I had to stay on mute just for an extra second to wait for it to pass. Who's running this program? You must have one heck of a person who's running this internship program, because that tension that you just said. Helping a student along to help themselves versus enabling them and over helping them is a very delicate balance to maintain. So you must have one heck of an expert.
We do. And, what's interesting is that the folks that we have in that shop aren't necessarily all coming from the traditional kind of career intersection education kind of background, certainly some of that, but they are as much about student development and growth and then how does the internship piece play a part in that. So for your listeners, if they ever want to go to our website, if they look at the Career Design Center, they'll see that we've got this cycle of development that we talk about, where it's initiating, testing, reflecting, clarifying, analyzing, and investigative. And it's this loop that they work through to make sure that students really understand how they're going to get where they go. Some of that's career exploration and just really understanding how their skills and abilities and passions line up with what's what's available out there in the marketplace, and or how do they create those opportunities if they don't exist. And so we've certainly seen students go in a lot of different directions, and that definitely is because we've got terrific staff who work really hard and stay focused on our students to make sure that they're successful.
If you're experiencing any level of marketing challenge right now, you've got to ask the hard questions and you need answers. Are you using the right mix of channels to get in front of your future students? Is your messaging personalized and delivered in a medium your audience and future students will respond to? And are you spending more time building reporting than listening in on what your students really want? All of these questions will get answered when you sign up for your free consultation with MDT Marketing. Head to mdtmarketing.com/edup, submit your information, and talk to MDT. Don't go it alone. Find the right partner. The guys at MDT, the team at MDT is absolutely amazing. Whether your challenge is the cost of inquiries, your branding, the bad and incomplete information that come with your inquiries, whatever it is, an audit of your challenges will help your institution, and it's free. mdtmarketing.com/edup. How often do you see a student go on an internship and come back and go, you know what? I do not want to do this.
I know of a handful.
How unfair is it for us to ask 17, 18, 19-year-olds to pick what the hell they want to do for the rest of their life? I don't think for any of us, at least me, I didn't think I was going to have a prayer of ending up in higher education. I was working sales, and I think I wanted to go on to be an actor in Los Angeles. And here I am in Ontario, California now. That's irrelevant, but I wanted to be an actor. I didn't want to be an educator. And, so how many of them just go, you know what, that is way harder than I thought. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, and sometimes it definitely is. Wow, that's going to be more difficult. Then I need to think about something different. Sometimes it's they have a picture in their mind that's been influenced by culture or by their background, by family, friends, etc. And when they get in to do some of the work, they fundamentally recognize this is A, they're not what I thought it was, or B, wow, I thought I was going to really love this, but I really don't. And so we definitely have students that do a second internship in a completely different area. But we would argue that having an internship in an area that ends up being a really bad fit has so many valuable learning opportunities embedded in that alone, because the ability to discern your own strengths and weaknesses and passions and what you get excited about, and frankly, what you don't get excited about, can be just as effective. I mean, good grief, the world's better off that I didn't continue to try to chase after a CPA after I finished my accounting degree, because I would have been a terrible accountant. But it did help me understand what I was passionate about and what I wasn't not only not passionate about, but not good at either.
Brian, this is the part of the episode where I like to keep a guest on their feet by asking you a question completely unrelated to higher education, unless you want to try to connect it. You ready?
Go for it.
$5 question here on the line, Brian. If you're going to walk into a room, well, I'm going to say if you were, when you walk into a room at William Peace University and a song was playing as your entrance music, what song defines you, Brian?
So I have two answers for that. If you asked most people on our campus, they would say Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
Nice.
And that's in large part because the name of our strategic plan is Believe in Peace. And so that became an adopted song at a number of strategic planning rollout events and things like that. If it was going to be to define me personally, let's see, I would say...
I got to get my button that goes beep, boop.
Yeah.
Boop. I don't have that one yet.
Well, let's see. I'm going to reference a good California band. It's a song by Switchfoot, and who's out there in San Diego, and I'm drawing a complete title blank on the title.
That's okay. That's good enough. I think that you clarified it well enough. And if your staff wants to go find the name of that and play it for you after this episode is released, I challenge your staff to go and do that. Well done, sir. And Don't Stop Believing has actually come up a number of times, the Journey song, a number of times among college presidents. I think it's like the common message that you're serving students. You have to believe. You do. It's a really great song for working in higher ed. And so you guys you're also helping adult students, right? You're not just an undergraduate institution at the liberal arts doing internships. You're helping adult students and I got to find where it was on your websites, but it was we're helping adult students who need different schedules. I got to find the exact words, but it was working adults, something about working adults, accelerated programs for working adults. I love that little tagline.
Yeah. So one of the cool things about where we're located here in Raleigh is that we have a very education-rich environment here, and we've got some terrific, R1 institutions that provide a ton of graduate programming for some really smart, talented people. One of the gaps that we have the pleasure of filling is helping adults, working adults who maybe have some college but never finished their bachelor's degree. And we have set up a program, it's about a little over 10 years old now, that allows adults to enroll at their pace. So we have 6 different starts per year. So they can pick either a full semester work or an accelerated half semester course. And they can go as fast or slow as they want. And we offer primarily online only, although we do have some hybrid programs. We do have some adults that really want that in-person experience. And so for those, we have a good hybrid option. But for the vast majority of them, high quality, but also very flexible schedules is what they're seeking. And so we have degree programs that are designed exclusively for that population, and it works out really, really well. It's been interesting. Most of our adult students live within 40 to 60 miles of campus, but we have had a couple years ago, I remember I had the chance to meet somebody who flew up from Puerto Rico because they had just finished their degree program with us and wanted to actually walk during commencement. Nice. But the vast majority of them are from here.
I feel like you have to go out and trademark your pace at peace, right?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's got a nice little alliteration to that. Your pace at peace, your pace at peace. There's something there. You said it. I'm just repeating what you said. It's your brilliance that I am celebrating today.
Nice. Can I redeem myself because I remembered the name of the song? It's called Dark Horses.
Go.
Dark horses, and it's this concept of course what a dark horse is, and that is being underestimated and then being able to come out on top. And so I think that represents a little bit of what the work we're trying to do here right now.
Funny enough, as we talk about your pace at peace, you're the Pacers.
Indeed, we are, and I did not plan that. Nice, that was a brilliant connection.
No, I just pulled that across. It's a horse. Is that a horse or a
thoroughbred
of some kind?
It is.
Look at that. Talk to us about financial modeling. Talk to us about what's keeping you up at night, Brian, running a liberal arts institution of any kind in this environment, highly competitive environment that we have. Student choice is at an all-time high as they can look at any institution to go online or on ground, and all the on-ground institutions now have online. So that's not necessarily a differentiator as it was in the past. Yeah. I think, and I'm opining for you just here for a second, I think you guys have done a really good job crystallizing your value proposition, focusing on the internship, which I think a lot of schools, either they don't have or they're not really focusing on that. So it's like, if I want to go to school and learn and work, this could be where I need to go. And that's a really important niche of students. So well done there. But what's keeping you up at night and what keeps you coming back the next day?
Sure. So I would have answered this question very differently even 18 months ago, 24 months ago. So my answer probably won't surprise you, but the mental and emotional health of our students and our faculty and staff in the midst of the pandemic definitely keeps me up at night, and partly because it's my own mental and emotional health that I want to make sure I'm chasing after as well. So we were very fortunate. We were able to stay in person instruction for the entire pandemic, and our students really responded beautifully to that. Our faculty and staff just took extraordinary measures to adopt every safety and health protocol that we could and allow for in-person instruction. And we saw the fruit of that because we had our highest retention rate in the history of the institution this year, which is pretty amazing.
That's
in the middle of the pandemic. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. And the funny thing is the answer to what gets me back here in the next morning is almost identical, and that is our students, faculty, and staff. We have an incredible community here, and my job is to do everything I can to lead this institution forward and cast the vision that will allow our students to have incredibly successful experiences here and certainly in life beyond, and to support and enable our faculty and staff to demonstrate their creativity and brilliance and innovation and passion for our students. And so that's also what gets me up in the morning. And this for me is a calling and something that I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to lead this institution and this community at this time, and hope that I get to do it for a long time.
That's good. I hope you get to do it for a long time as well. The location that you're in, Raleigh, and the corner of the world that you're in there, and so what is that? The southeast? Is that considered southeast? South? Is it the South? Is Raleigh the South?
Yes. I mean, it's both, right? It's the South in the traditional terms, and then certainly Southeast, depending on what other framework you want to use, whether it's weather or athletics.
Yeah, you're in part of the country where I think other than the Northwest, demographics are college age demographics are predicted to fall in the next 5 years, and it's gonna be another 10 before they flip around. Talk about marketing, talk about value proposition. How often are those coming up in your management meetings? How do you guys discuss those things, and how often do you discuss?
Yeah, so every week probably.
Man.
We are like most small colleges, we are an enrollment-driven institution, and so certainly another answer to your question about what keeps me up at night is how we remain competitive and how we continue to have the enrollment necessary for us to really provide the best experience possible for our students. So, branding and marketing here is an ever-evolving environment, in large part because we're, as I mentioned earlier, we're an incredibly educational rich state. We have, I would argue, one of the best public systems in the country, and we've got 36 independent colleges in North Carolina. And so we are often working hard to make sure that we're differentiating from our competitors, and not unlike most small privates, most of our competitors are the flagship publics from an application volume standpoint, for sure. So in some ways that makes it a little bit easier because we can stay true to who we are and differentiate students. And so we spend a lot of our time making sure that students clearly understand who we are and who we aren't. In fact, we're so committed to immersive learning and the concept of, experiential hands-on opportunities that's actually one of our essay questions in our admissions application, to really help students articulate why our learning approach is something that they get excited about. And we believe it is fundamentally different from the schools with whom we compete. And if we're successful in helping students understand that, then if they don't choose us, then they're not choosing us for a good reason. And that's because we might not be a good fit for them. And if they're looking for a larger or more passive type of experience, then we tell them straight up that we're probably not a good fit. That being said, it's also a much noisier world than it was 5, 10, and 20 years ago. I came up on the enrollment side throughout my career, and it is a lot harder to grab ear space and mind space in this marketplace. With digital overload and finding opportunities to have to really communicate your message clearly is not an easy thing to do. And so we're continuing to look for creative ways to do that, whether it's telling our own story through unique mediums, but also making sure that we're helping the marketplace recognize who we are. And so we're still spending a lot of time trying to make sure that we are building good, solid longitudinal relationships with college counselors, but also different markets to make sure that we're reaching the students that really can be successful here.
That's a correct answer, Brian. Thank you. Everything you said is totally right on. And I love the frequency with, I feel like if you're from enrollment, you come from the enrollment side of the house. It's like, we're going to talk about this all the time because we know if you don't, it's the way we're all in this together in higher education until we have to recruit students, and then you have to be just a little bit better than your competition. And if you don't talk about it all the time and you don't differentiate and you don't crystallize your brand, somebody else will. And it's just, you got to know how to talk about yourself, and you have to know what your true value proposition is, because students will respond if you really truly believe in it. Don't you think, Brian?
I do, absolutely. And one of the comments I heard Joanne Soliday say once, who's used to be with Credo and terrific education hired leader for a very, very long time. She often talked about the fact that at the end of the day, people are going to be shifting to really seeing higher ed as an investment. And the only way they're going to really truly see it as an investment is by recognizing value. And if there's not value there, then they're not going to see it as investment, and therefore they'll make a different choice. And I think she's spot on with that. And so it is incumbent upon us to make sure that not only are we good stewards of this university, but that we're good stewards of our story, so that people understand who we are and see that we could be a terrific investment, because we could provide experiences and growth opportunities that I think are pretty distinctive.
I'm going to ask you this question because it's a rarity for us, and that is, to your point, finding somebody in a presidential role that has come up through enrollment. It's rare. You see student services even a little bit more. Certainly provost and dean and all on that whole side. I've argued, my argument has been, and nobody listens to me, so obviously it's not much of an argument, is that the president of the future better be an enrollment and marketing expert. Because if you're not playing in that sandbox, you're going to be absolutely eviscerated by the competition, because it's the academic quality as it is. Over the last 20 years, everybody has really beefed up academic quality and quality. By and large, academic quality is there. What's not there and what hasn't been there now is this ability to really differentiate in, as you said, a very noisy world that got so much noisier in the last 2 years as institutions have started experimenting with all different things, and now everybody has everything. It's like, what do you do to really differentiate? And so at the top level, you have to understand those trends. And I feel like people who come from enrollment management just have just a little bit of advantage because they've spent careers looking at those trends.
Yeah, I would agree. But I bet if you have any enrollment managers and leaders who are listening to this podcast, they're going to quickly say that the world is changing so rapidly that it's also elevated how critically important it is to have a terrific leader or leaders in enrollment and marketing, because things are shifting so quickly. It's great to have a president who values it and understands its critical importance for the health of an institution. But as I often remind my VP for enrollment and marketing, I am not the senior VP for enrollment and marketing, and that would make your life a lot worse and probably make life not as good for the university. So, right. But it is important to understand and value it, because if you take your eye off the ball for not very long, you can really feel the pain from that.
Love it. Brian, we ask this same two questions of every guest at the end of the show here. I'm going to ask them to you. Number one, what did we miss about William Peace University that you want to talk about? Something that you were hoping to say today. I didn't ask you the right question, so it didn't come up. So now it's your chance to plug and give us your website or anything else that you want to talk about. Your chance to just grab the mic without me guiding the conversation. And then number two, we're going to quote you in the local Raleigh newspaper with this one. What is the future of higher education going to look like? We're really not going to quote you, but, no right or wrong answer on that one.
Yeah, no. All right. So what did we miss? I think we've covered a lot of really good ground today. We've had a chance to talk about our curriculum and our faculty, our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion. And so a lot of those are I think, hallmarks. And obviously our ability to really meet students where they're at and help them achieve their dreams is something that we take very seriously. So I think, all of that to say, folks that do want to learn more about us, in particular about our approach, go to www.peace.edu and check us out, and would love any feedback. If anybody wants to share some, I would welcome that. We want to be the best institution we can be in serving our students. Future of higher ed. So this is an interesting time. I happen to be the very proud dad of 3 college students right now. All 3 of my daughters are in college. Yeah, it's been a privilege to go through the college search process with them. It has definitely made me a better president. But
I got to ask you, did you just dissect that search process?
Oh,
like I have 2 young kids. I have 2 young kids, and I'm just waiting for them to go to college so I could be like, I know what you're doing here. You're doing that to me and my kids. You son of a gun. I'm gonna, where's your boss? That's the kind of stuff I imagine myself doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did dissect it. It also gave me a much deeper appreciation of how nuts it is to have built my career on the whims of a 17-year-old, because it is amazing what influences college decisions and how schools stay on the list. And it was also unbelievably insightful to see how each institution tried to engage with my daughters. And it was fascinating, and I learned a lot and drove my enrollment team crazy because I was sending stuff to them all the time. But that being said, I'm keenly interested, obviously, in the future of higher ed, not only because I'm a college president, but also because I've got 3 daughters who are engaged in this incredible industry now. I think that we learned a couple things. One is that the pandemic taught us a lot about learning style challenges that come from a virtual environment that I think we perhaps did not take as seriously or did not understand as well as we do now. There were a ton of kids that were left behind, and we're still seeing that here in the state of North Carolina, and working hard to reconcile that. But there's the fact that we had our highest retention rate in the history of the university tells us that our students really wanted to be here in person and engage in that experience. That being said, I think we also learned that there are a lot of new modalities that can be used to enhance learning opportunities for students. Something as simple, for example, as us being able to do peer tutoring virtually at 8 o'clock at night instead of 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the coffee shop is just a cool little thing that we probably didn't look at closely enough that we're going to probably be spending a lot more time looking at. So I think that the other thing we learned is that there is a big difference between information acquisition and true learning. And one of the challenges that I think the virtual environment created for us was having, especially in K-12, these teachers have to take extraordinary lengths to convey information in a 2-dimensional world. And that's just really, really hard to do. Now, I'm certain there are going to be some really cool organizations and companies that are going to emerge from this with some awesome and truly impactful learning opportunities that will be in a virtual or artificial AI type of environment. That being said, I think we also learned that human connectedness is critically important to learning and growth as individuals, as well as being able to collaborate and create creative moments that just simply don't happen in a 2-dimensional Zoom screen. I do think that there are going to be fewer institutions in the future of higher ed. I think that the demographic shifts that you talked about earlier are real, obviously, but they're going to have real impact. And to steal one of your comments earlier, schools that don't wake up every morning thinking about their market position and how they're going to reach the market, especially in declining demographic areas, are going to really, really struggle.
That's just, that's a winning comment. I love it. Yeah, so much of what you said is right on, in my opinion. This has been insightful. I've learned a lot from you, my friend, and it's been an honor to host you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the EdUp Experience podcast with your guest today. Here he is again, Dr. Brian C. Ralph, president at William Peace University. Check him out at peace.edu. Peace like PEACE, not the other piece. And check out what they have going on. So much stuff that you can learn. Check out Brian on LinkedIn. I just connected with him. He better, now that we're still recording this, he better accept my connection, or else we'll have a future episode talking about Brian's failed LinkedIn connections, but we don't want to do that. Brian, any final thoughts for us?
No, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And I wish all my colleagues the very best as we continue to push through and carry out the missions of our institutions to impact the lives of our students. It's good stuff. It's a great calling. And hopefully we'll get through this pandemic here soon so we can get to the new work that we have in front of us.
Truth. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. You've just EdUp'd. Are you using the right mix of channels to get in front of your audience? Is your messaging personalized and delivered in a medium your audience responds to? Are you spending more time building reports than listening in on what your audience wants? These are not easy questions to answer. That's why our great friends at MDT Marketing are offering a free audit of your marketing efforts. Head to www.mdtmarketing.com/edup and submit your information for your free consultation today. Look, guys, you got nothing to lose. It's free. I don't know why you wouldn't want a free audit to tell you what you're doing, whether it's effective, and how you can make some incremental changes that can make a big difference moving forward. That's www.mdtmarketing.com/edup.